Hello, hello.
Hi.
Welcome to Historia.
Oh, wonderful day it is. I'm Jamie.
I'm Kylie.
Welcome. I love that name.
So we just left the 50s, now we're entering the 60s, and we're going to jump into
Miss Audrey Hepburn. Oh my god, I love her so much. My favorite movies, How to Steal a Million. It is so iconic. It's one of her later movies.
Yeah,
In the 60s,
so good.
But yeah, it is so good. It's one of my favorites. It was on Netflix, but I think they took it off, which really pisses me off because now I have to
find it,
which is really hard to find old movies.
I wonder if they have probably a DVD set, but
yeah,
you could find a set of all her movies somewhere.
I'm sure you can. Yeah. But she is such an iconic woman. I recommend. So on Netflix too, there is a documentary called Audrey Hepburn, and I recommend everyone to watch it. It is so good. It really looks at every aspect of her life from beginning to end, even her family. And I got quite a bit of just my information from the documentary towards the end. I got a lot of my information through her son. One of her sons wrote a whole biography. I'm going to get into this, but her family dynamic of her with her children is just amazing. I love it. I got to admit, I've been watching her movies for years. I love them. They're unique. She's ahead of her time. Mm-hmm. But I did not know that much about her early life or even her later life. I always thought that she died really young because she just stopped making films. But then I realized, she did do some films in the late 80s. But then there wasn't really nothing. And the more research that I did of her, I was just no freaking way. This chick is wild.
I don't know. I only have seen her in movies and I love her, but I don't know much about her. So I'm excited to learn more.
She is an icon for sure. And she's a very unlikely icon because of what she looks like. Mm-hmm. But first, I'm going to start in Europe.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. So, Audrey's mother was Ella van Heemstra. She was born in the 1900s, and she came from a prominent family in Holland. Believe it or not, she was Dutch nobility. Mm. But she never, Audrey never flaunted that. She never.
Really?
No.
That's incredible.
She completely disconnected herself into that part of her family.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. But, so, as I was reading more about Ella, just you wait until her mother and father, it's freaking batshit crazy. But she was a daughter of 5 other siblings. She considered herself the black sheep. She was always the crazy one. I'll tell you why. But she was one who kind of just followed to her own step.
Okay.
But so she grew up with her 5 other siblings and her father and her mother, and they were all being nobility, super, but they weren't that rich. Mm. Yeah, they completely lost their money, but this was also super early before the war.
Yeah.
So she married her first husband in 1920 to Hendrik Gustav Adolf Corals van Ufford of Oosterbeek.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was reading some of these and I was like, oh my god, that's a lot of names.
I'm impressed by the way you pronounced it. So
there's 4 years of just looking at.
Did I pet you? Oh, I got to pet the cat.
Did she meow at you?
Yeah. But she put her head back.
She was just she probably smells Harley. I see she likes you when the dog's not around.
Oh, okay. I don't know whether
don't mind her meowing. She just does that. She's probably playful. Oh my god!
Does she open her mouth? Yeah, she's yeah. She probably Harley on me.
Ruby, you bitch.
Okay, so Jamie's dog or cat is going to attack me. Anyway,
oh my god, I'm so sorry. She likes you when Harley's not around, but she smells the dog.
Oh, I know. No, it's fine. She used to like me.
Okay.
Dog.
She freaking walked on you in the bathroom.
Yeah, she hasn't done that in a while.
That's because of your dog. Anyway, so she marries this dude with a really long name. He was an oil executive, so he was also from a very prominent family. Mm-hmm. But that's what her father expected her to do. He was like, you're 20 years old, go marry this guy. And she was like, I guess I will. In 5 years, they had 2 sons. They named their 2 sons Alex and Ian. But in 1925, she divorced that man.
Oh.
She was like, bye. I'm going to the East Indies.
Not a very long marriage.
No, she was like, I'm leaving. I'm going to take care of these kids. Don't you worry. But I'm going to the Indies to find myself.
Oh, we love it.
And let's introduce Audrey's father.
Okay.
I got some words, but you know what? That's just me. His name was Joseph Rouston. He was born in 1889 in Bohemia. He was a very interesting man. He was once a cavalryman.
Yeah.
He was part of that. So he worked with horses, but he also was also working in the East Indies, and that's how they met, as I'll go into. But so I don't know if he made it up, but he said that he was a descendant of one of the husbands of Mary, Queen of Scots, and that the family came from James Hepburn, Earl of Bothwell. Oh. So and then Ella later would become like super into this name Hepburn, and so he would he would hyphenate that with Rouston. Mm-hmm. And so he became Joseph Hepburn Rouston. So the two met in 1925.
Okay.
Because they were both in the East Indies. They met and they were like, oh my God, I love you.
That's the year of her divorce, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Very quick turnaround.
Oh my gosh. You see in this entire story, everything's just a quick turnaround. But, like, she has reasons. Mm-hmm. But so they met in 1925 in the East Indies. I believe it was the East Indies. And it was one of the Indies. And they just fell in love. And then that following year, they got married. But the thing is, he was still married when he met Ella. He was a married man. Yeah. And he just was so infatuated with Ella. He was just like, oh my God, I love you so much. I didn't really find anything going into that, but he divorced her within a year. He was like, I'm done with you. I'm getting with Ella. I love her.
Okay. I was going to say, did he ever divorce her?
Yeah, well, yeah, because, polygamy is illegal in a lot of states. Yeah. I think.
Should be. Probably.
I don't think in Utah. So they moved in with each other. They decided to move to Belgium. Mm-hmm. And she had her two, like, her sons would, like, make visitations and stuff because they still had their dad. Yeah. Mr. Gustav Adolf Karl von Uford.
You're so good at saying these names. I'm impressed.
But, so they have their little family going in, and then in 1929, Audrey was born. Miss Audrey Kathleen Rouston. But it would be Hepburn Rouston because, hyphenation. Yeah. But, so she was born May 4th, 1929 in Brussels, Belgium. But her family, before we were filming this, I had no idea how to pronounce what her family called her. So I had to look it up on Google.
You can have it play it if you want.
I think I may have, erased out of it. Yeah, I did. So her family called her Audriante.
That sounded Audriante.
Which, it's another English name for that is Adrian, but I'm like, but it's Audrey. I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, whatever. Names are difficult.
Is it Audrian? Or Adrian?
Maybe Adrian. Maybe I don't know. Because I looked at all the other names and Audrey was not on the list, and I was like, weird. Okay, let's move forward. That is interesting. So Audrey, as a kid, she was very lively with her family. She was very playful. She loved to be outside. She loved to go climb trees, go to the woods. She loved hanging out with her brothers. She was just a very, very lively kid. But she was not towards other people's. Like, she was really close to her parents, too. Like, she was a daddy's girl for a time being. And she just, when her family would go away, she'd be really sad. And it didn't help that she was just a very quiet, shy, sensitive kid. Like, and she even talks about it, too, in a lot of, like, her interviews of just how just she was very introverted. She's not a very extroverted person, which, if you look at her Breakfast at Tiffany's, like, it's a complete 180. Yeah. But a lot of the reason for that was because her parents left a lot. Like, she was really close to her dad because he taught her how to ride a horse. He brought her up in glider planes. Like, those were the two big memories that she had of her father. She had more with her mother because she spent a lot more time, but with her father, those were the only two that, like, even her son Sean would talk about. Like, those were the only two memories that she really talked to him.
Oh, wow.
Or, like, her family about, and I'll go into, like, why that is. But at age 5, she started to notice that her dad was being gone a lot. Like, her mom would be gone, and I'll explain further, but, like, her dad was just gone a lot more. And that made her really sad because she was super close to her dad at this young age. Like, she just had this, she held this bond with him. And then when he would come home, Joseph and Ella would just be yelling at each other, just arguing all the time. And this caused very severe anxiety, which would affect her for the rest of her life. Like, you could see it going in. She became very insecure. It would lead to insecurity, but her anxiety just became really problematic.
That's so sad.
Yeah. And it was, oh God. And this was all in the first 5 years of her life that she started to see this, and it's not healthy for a 5-year-old to see this. No. But she started to develop asthma too, so she just, whenever it got, like, really rough, she was breathing, like, really heavily, and that causes, oh my God, I don't think you can hear this, but there is a screeching.
It sounds like my car sometimes in the winter, but I'm not even that bad. Like, no, my car's not that bad.
I always hear that car, and I'm like, oh God, here we go. And they take their damn time driving by.
Oh my God, I thought mine was bad.
Yeah, their car, it's so loud. I don't, if you can.
Mine makes a screeching sound when I start it, like when there's a lot of air in it or when it's colder, or just randomly. But,
that was really bad.
And they told me you can't fix it. And I said, okay.
That's so stupid.
So anyway,
cars are difficult. But, so, when her parents were gone, she was left to her Opa and Oma, which are her grandparents, and she grew pretty close to them. But can you guess where her parents were when they left?
No.
They were part of the fascist party.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Whoa. I did not know that, and I was like, no fucking way.
I did not see that coming.
Yeah, they were part of, like, the Belgian Dutch, like, fascist party, and they would go to Germany and just, like, cheer on the parades and whatnot, and they would go to, like, British. Yeah, like, they were there. They were there. They were, like, 100% in.
Do they come back in her life, or?
Yes. Okay. So when I read this, I was like, no way. But you see more of, like, the information of how her mom saw it because she was so invested. She even wrote articles about how great the Nazi party is. And, like, her dad would stay in, like, the fascist party. But, like, her mom, like, through the war was just like, oh no. Geez. And we'll see why. But they were just really engulfed with Hitler's, charming, charismatic persona that he gave off, like most people who were involved in the party would. And it's awful, but, like, you have to look at the perspective. Like, Hitler was very charismatic, and that's how he got away with everything.
Right.
But, like, also it's just like, dude, your ideologies are, like, not that great.
Oh my God.
So she was, like, a little 5-year-old, 6-year-old, just hanging out with the Opa and Oma.
Oh, wow.
And her parents were off in Germany, just, like,
hanging out with Hitler.
Like, woo! Yeah, and so, Whew.
Oh, man. That is a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah. Reading into that, I was just like, no freaking
No way.
Because one of the books that I read, we'll put it in the notes, it just strictly looks at Audrey in World War II. And it's so good. Oh my God, it's so good. It is so good. I love it. Anyway, as you can tell, I like books.
We know.
But, so her parents did eventually come back and they moved her to Brussels, Belgium. But then, as soon as he got back, her dad walked out. He was just like, see you later. Wouldn't want to be ya.
What?
Yeah. And he even had visitation rights, and he very seldom used those.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so this would cause... Audrey Hepburn, she would say that this is one of her most traumatic life events that she would have in her life, was her father giving up on her. In that sense. And it's so sad, because it would lead to more insecurity, more anxiety, and just her abandonment issues that she would have. And we'll see that along her journey of just like how rough she struggled with herself of acceptance, especially when she knew that like her father was not giving it to her.
Yeah.
Because he was so close to her, and then all of a sudden he was like, hey, I'm peacing out, bye. Like, it's rough to just take a 180 and just be like, where'd you go? Like, why'd you leave me? Because you always have that constant question of just, like, why? Mm-hmm. And for the longest time, she never got an answer. It would be 25 years. And even then, he never gave her an answer.
That's horrible.
She just accepted it.
Oh.
Yeah. So when you're talking about with Marilyn Monroe, it's just like, that's how it starts. Mm-hmm. It's not only daddy
it's the
issues,
childhood,
but it's the childhood.
The trauma.
Yeah, and growing up in like, not because she wasn't in like Nazi Germany strictly, but she grew up in Europe during World War II, which is super rough because she was in the brunt of it. Mm-hmm. And this only pissed Ella off. She was so upset. She caused a scene when Joseph left. She was just a mess. She was a wreck, and Audrey was there for all of it. She witnessed all of it. And her mom was just really sad. She could hear her crying in the middle of the night. Mm. Like, because in the Audrey Hepburn movie, or in the documentary, she did like an interview and was talking about it, and so they do like her actual talk, like talking about it, and just her memory of it, and it's so devastating, just to be so young and hearing your mother just crying over this man who left her, and promising that, oh, he's gonna come back, like I know he's going to come back,
right,
and just being in a funk for so long. And this didn't help with her being a better mother. She still wanted to go and be part of the fascist party. Mm. Like, she still went off and just kind of was like, hey, I love you, child, but I need to, like, leave. Ooh. And so she dropped Audrey off at a private school in Eltham, in England. Eltham. It's by Canterbury. This school, though, was probably one of the greatest decisions her mother made for her, just because it would really guide her into her Hollywood future, in a sense. But, so, this abandonment still became a huge part of her life. Like, she now didn't have a dad, but her mom was also just going off to join a political party that was absolutely terrifying and would become a problem in a few years. So she joined this private school in Canterbury, in Eltham, and she was just like, I don't know what to do, because she was already a very shy, kind of timid girl, like being thrown into this. But luckily there were governesses to help her lead the way. So the head was Alice Catherine Rigdon. And then the other governesses, I believe, they said they were sisters, but I don't know if that's like a nun thing.
Yeah, if they were like sisters or if they were sisters.
Yeah, I don't know. But, So there was Nora Mabel, Maria Amelia, and Blanche Henrietta. Now, Audrey formed a very, very special bond with Nora because she was her music and English teacher. And she was super helpful in introducing Audrey to dancing. Because,
that makes sense.
Newsflash, Audrey didn't want to be an actress. She wanted to be a ballet dancer, believe it or not. And she worked her butt off to be one. Like, the commitment that she put into it is just phenomenal. Like, that's one thing I appreciate. One of the many things I appreciate so much about Audrey Hepburn is the commitment she put into everything. And very different from...
That's interesting.
Marilyn is that she put her...
She didn't want to be a star. She was more focused on, like, pursuing what she loved. And ballet.
Ballet is really hard to do,
Oh,
especially for her.
And you got to start young.
Yeah, and she started very young, but she was also very tall for her age. I did not know this. Freaking blew my mind. She is 5'7".
Really?
5'7". I thought she was like 5'2".
I'm gonna guess like 5'5", like 5'4", 5'5", but like
she was tiny. So she's technically in like, I guess in women's height, tall.
Interesting.
I don't consider that tall because I'm 5'11", but
I consider it tall. I'm 5'4", 5'3.5", as my doctor tells me.
My doctor.
I think I'm 5'4", builder.
But yeah, she was pretty tall, but I think it's like her slender figure that really kind of made her, because she was petite.
Right.
But she was still tall.
Yeah.
Like, I guess you could really see it in her legs. Like, she had long legs. But it's just, it blew my mind. I was like, when I read that, I was like, I just did like, how I do most of my research, I just start off with a Google search. Because if you go to the notes, they oftentimes have actually good sources.
Yeah.
Instead of reading the Wikipedia.
Right, right.
But when I saw 5'7", I was like, you're kidding me. I was like, no way.
Just because she was so, like, she was, like, petite without being petite.
Yeah, she was so skinny. And there's a reason for that. About to get it.
Oh, no.
Gonna get into that. Don't you worry. My funny bone.
Her funny bone on the chair. You okay?
I was opening wine and it freaking bumped my elbow, like that little funny bone part.
That's the worst place to hit yourself.
I just want you all to know that I'm almost finished with this bottle of wine.
Me too. I have, like, very little left.
It's a good thing I bought a third one. Because I knew
We're always prepared.
I'm always prepared. Plus, it's really hard to find this wine, so I bought another one thinking that it was.
You should have bought like 5 of them.
I should have, but it's $13.
Oh, yeah.
Still, that's like not that much for wine. Anyway, I'm getting off track, God. Okay. So, this relationship that she had with Nora would really put a foundation into her Hollywood career as it really started her with dancing. Mm-hmm. But, of course, she fell in love with it. She just immediately was like, I want to be a ballet dancer. I want to work it. I want to do it. Just you wait. And this private school did great at doing that. So, but even though it was a private school, it wasn't like a boarding school. So she still had to stay with a family. So from what I found, she stayed with the Butcher family. Mm-hmm. I put Boother in my notes.
You knew what you meant.
I have terrible lefties handwriting. My God. But yeah, the lady of the house was Mary, and she pretty much kept watch of Audrey. Mm-hmm. But she still, even though she really got into dancing, that didn't help with her, like, opening out of her shell. Like, she was still very shy, very quiet, and one of her one of the friends that she does meet, and one of her neighbors at the time, Peggy Baker, stated, she seemed fairly lonely, especially during the long school holidays. And when I read that, I felt so bad because her parents probably didn't show up.
Oh, crap. And, like, everyone else would leave. Mm-hmm. So what would she do? Just
stay there with Mary.
I wonder if she, like, had... Oh, yeah, I guess she had Mary, but, like, if she had a friend she could go with or something.
But,
that's
like,
so
and
sad.
she had her brothers, and she loved her brothers, but she was taken away from her brothers.
Yeah.
Because they were probably staying with their father, And so everything was just ripped from the hinges of her life at such a young age. And it's so sad because she's such a wonderful woman.
Right.
And just to have such a rough upbringing. And
I'm glad she turned out the way she did, after going through all of that.
I was reading, too, that, I guess in some some of the sources that I was reading that they said that, because of her nobility title, that she was fed from, a silver spoon. It's like, no.
Yeah, no.
No, she was pretty much tossed around, and then in World War II, that.
She went through it.
She went through it, and
I have no idea what you just said.
I mumble a lot. I'm sorry. So, but over time, her family did start to visit a little bit more. Her dad, maybe once, I'm guessing. Not that often, but her mom started to show up more often. Like, hey, how's it going? And then when her brothers would make an appearance, she would just be over the moon. It instantly, 100%, turned her mood up. She was happy. She was that lively kid that she was because she had her family. But then when they would leave, she's like, well, I'm alone again.
Yeah.
I don't have anything. Family's so important. And she really emphasizes that. And love. She highly emphasizes love throughout her life.
Aww.
And why do you think she takes so many romance roles? But, so her mother finally did decide to come back. She was like, okay, I'm done with this fascist stuff. I'm coming home. You want to join? And she was like, no.
You want to join?
She was like, no, I'm going to stay here.
With my real mom.
Because she grew such a fond relationship with Nora.
Yeah.
That she even introduced her into ballet lessons in Folkestone, just a few miles away. So she would just go to the next town over and be like, hey, I'm dancing.
Yeah.
But yeah, her mom was like, hey, do you want to come back? And she's like, no, I actually like this. Even though she wanted that attachment with her mother, she just was so in love with dancing and she didn't want to give it up, especially there. But dun, 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 1939 hit.
Oh, no.
And Germany and Russia signed a deal for Germany to invade Poland.
Oh, goodness.
And they did. This freaked out everyone. So, her mom was just like, what just happened? They just invaded Poland? And then they got the news that, England's probably going to be next.
Yeah.
That they're going to start dropping bombs. And she was like, my daughter's in England. She can't be. No, we got to bring her home. In the freaking start of the war, she was like, I got to bring my daughter home. And I was like, oh my God.
Great.
It was just freaking chaos. So she finally, called up Audrey. It was like, hey, you got to come home. There's this war starting. I know you love it there, but I need you back home in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Because Netherlands at the time was neutral.
Right.
Because in World War I, it was neutral.
Yeah.
And so Ella immediately thought, hey, we're going to be okay. This is going to be a neutral zone. We're going to be fine. We're going to get through this. It's only going to last a few months. Even Audrey in the documentary and just, in the sources that they only thought that it was going to be a few months. They thought it was going to be one done, bye.
It's like COVID.
But no, it lasted 6 years. Yeah. And so her mom was like, okay, you're coming home. We're going to put you on a plane to the Netherlands. She's like, okay, fine. I'm going to come home. Well, they had to fly into the Netherlands from England, which is a no-no zone. Because they were like, well, if you're English,
right,
you're a betrayer.
Oh, yeah, so they couldn't.
They did.
They did?
Oh, they did. They flew really low so they wouldn't be noticed by the German patrollers. They flew so low. And I was just like, oh my God, I can't imagine. Yeah,
that'd be terrifying.
By herself, with a group of just strangers.
Oof.
In the fear that their plane can get shot down because they could be labeled as the enemy, pretty much. But luckily she did make it. Like, oh my God, my heart was just like racing. I was just like, oh no. But yeah, she made it.
Well, obviously she made it.
Yeah, well, she made it to Amsterdam. So as I told you in the beginning, that her mom's side of the family held titles, like nobility titles. They had to pawn off their estates and just like a lot of their property and just valuables to get money, because they were already struggling as it is, like her family. And then in the war, they lost 3 of their villas because they were bombed. So it's like, wow, yeah. Literally, this title then meant really nothing, because her mom was a baroness. Like, friggin' woo! But it didn't, at that point, like, it didn't really matter. You're pretty much fighting for your life.
Yeah.
At that point. But, so, she came back home, and she was just so ecstatic to see her mom. She was like, hey, I'm finally home. Like, we're finally together. But her mom was never really that affectionate. Like, she was never, like, a hugger, would never, like, give her... As Audrey really looked at it, never gave her, like, the cuddles and affection that a mother would give her child. She mostly got that from her aunt and uncle, which she grew so close with one of her aunts and uncles. I will get into that, but just in a few short seconds. But so her mom was not that affectionate, but she was really strict, because she had that Victorian, traditional, like, teaching lessons. Like, she was pretty much told her, like, you have to pretty much self-discipline yourself. You have to pretty much be a elegant woman. And that probably didn't help too with, like, her views of not only being Victorian because she grew up in that era, in late Victorian because she was born in 1900, but also of her coming from that wealthy family title. So that this would really affect Audrey in the long run, of her being very, I guess, detail-oriented. She took detail to everything. Attention. She was very elegant with how she talked, how she walked. Like, you can see that in her acting too. Like, it's just phenomenal, because she never really took acting lessons. Like, she just was thrown into it, and which I'll get into. But so as soon as she came home, they also realized that her name was too English. Audrey was too English. So they decided to Dutch it up and started calling her Ida. Okay. So she was Ida von Audrey Hinstra. Okay. So she was more than her name, but they had to. And a lot of, I read in just like skimming through like some articles, they were even saying that her name was Ada, but it never was. Like, in the book that her own son wrote and had photographs of it, when you read it, he has her birth certificate and her passports, and Ada was not originally on there. But she had it corrected after the war, because she was just her family was just so afraid that, well, if her name is just Audrey, that, oh, you're English, because her dad was part English.
That makes sense.
They wanted strictly Dutch or German. They did not want Allied forces.
So they kept Ada. Okay.
Yeah. So this, I like that name, Ada.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
So when she came back, God, I feel so bad to her. She still had to go to school, like any child. Like, they were still neutral. They're still kind of afraid of, like, what's going on in the outside, like, constantly, like, ear to radio, like, what's going on. But she still had to go to school, no matter what, because she's still a kid. She's old enough to go into, like, a school. She was thrown into an all-Dutch, like, speaking school. She did not know any Dutch.
Interesting.
Because even though her family is Dutch, she grew up in England. Yeah. She knew English. Later on, she knew French. But, so she didn't...
So she was just sitting there confused.
Yeah, and this would not help with her already, like, severe anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
And just, like, fear of the world, because she just, people would make fun of her accent because it wasn't like theirs. She didn't really know the language. Like, she was still trying to learn it, so she struggled. She did not like school. She liked history and, like, astronomy, but when it came to, like, mathematics or just some other, like, science and stuff, she just didn't really care about it. But everything was about ballet. Everything for dancing, she just felt that she was in love with. So anytime, like, she could work on her ballet dancing, like, she would.
Yeah.
But, so, she would come home crying.
No.
Yeah, poor thing. And she would just be so upset. But dancing helped her through the war, through all of this trauma. Like, dancing was what kept her going.
She probably couldn't really make friends if she couldn't speak their language.
Exactly.
So
which was really
it was
hard.
kind of like she's alone.
Mm-hmm. But in dancing, there's so much you can express through your emotions. And she wanted to be a solo ballet dancer. But, like, by the time she was really starting to get committed into it, like, she was already growing out of it. She was like, I missed my chance, pretty much.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So, she decided, though, that she wanted to become 100% committed to ballet December 29th, 1939, when she attended an event and saw these ballet dancers. She just immediately was just entranced by them, and she decided, that's what I want to do, and I will do anything to make this happen. But, of course, not all
dreams come true.
Yeah, but luckily her mom was super supportive of her continuing her lessons, because when she came back, like, she had to stop dancing because they didn't really have, like, the money at the time, or they were still trying to get settled.
Yeah.
But eventually, after, like, seeing that event, she pretty much was like to her mom, hey, I want to start ballet dance lessons again. Can I do this? And her mom was like, sure, let's do it. I'm going to encourage you, because her mom wanted to be a ballet dancer, believe it or not. But her father was like, no, get married.
Of course.
Keep the family going. But her mom
is supportive.
Yeah, which is honestly, that's great. Like, her political view was questionable.
Very questionable, but yes.
But she was still trying to be there for her daughter at this point, after so many years of just, like, not, which I can appreciate that, of just, like, especially in such a hard time, right? Like, at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But so she started to take lessons, and then 1940 hit, the invasion of Holland.
Ooh.
So,
good times.
Oh, God. World War II.
Fun times.
I do want to talk more about World War II, but for sure. There's so much.
Right.
There's so much. But she remembered just listening to the documentary and reading just her side of it. It's just, it was weird. She slept through the invasion. Like, her mom came in and was like, hey, we're being, like, pretty much, like, invaded. Like,
yeah,
this is serious now. But there was just, like, bombs going on, and then, oh, God, it's so rough. A lot of people, I just want to make note that when Germany invaded Holland, when they were coming for the Jews, there was many of them that instantly committed suicide.
Mm.
And Audrey talked about this, and how they would rather end their own lives
than go through
the hell.
Yeah.
Because they weren't even confident of, like, what was going to happen to them. They had no idea about the concentration camps.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
They didn't really see hope at all.
No. And so she definitely had to keep it on the low. Mm-hmm. But, like, and her brothers, though, were, like, had a completely different view. They did not support anything of the fascist party. And her mom started to distance herself from the party just because she was now witnessing it. And it was affecting her and her family. And so she started to realize, like, this is not good.
Yeah.
This is not really what I want for my children. But her older brothers, like, were really, really into the resistance and just, like, pretty much to stop Germany. Like, one of her brothers had to go into hiding for, like, most of the war because he was on a list.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And one boss-ass thing that I read, and it's in the documentary that Audrey would do, is that to the underground resistance, what she would do is to sneak, like, letters back and forth. She would stick them in her socks and would ride her bike to them because the officers weren't going to pull over a little kid and question them.
Oh.
Yeah.
Smooth.
Yeah. So she was, like, kind of a spy of just like, hey, here's what's going on. Here's some letters. And of course, she probably didn't really know most of what was going on. She just knew that, like, hey, I gotta deliver these photos or letters. Don't
She's
get
like,
caught.
I'm just doing what I was told to do. I'm not going to get caught. Okay.
Yeah, don't get caught.
Let's go. She's ready to go.
But, so that was pretty freaking awesome. So as she was doing that, she was also really focusing on her ballet.
Yeah.
Like, that was the main drive, but to get her going through. But, like, during this time, she grew really close with her aunt and uncle. Mm-hmm. Her aunt was Mige.
Okay.
And then her
Sounds
uncle
right.
was Uncle Otto.
Aww.
So she was really close with him. That she grew that kind of, like, fatherly bond that she never had with her father.
Have, yeah.
Yeah. So she grew really close, and they were part of the resistance, but, like, they had to be hush hush. Everything had to be hush hush, because if they found out, you're dead.
Yeah.
That's how it was. Like, God. So
you're gone.
Yeah, so she was growing really close with her uncle, but he was eventually captured by the Germans, and he was pretty much held hostage by them.
Oof.
And for crimes that, like, he didn't, for unknown crimes, really.
Wow.
They just suspected that he was part of the resistance.
Without any proof or anything.
Well, from what I was getting through, I think, like, he had more of that political view of being, because he was a diplomat.
Yeah.
So they instantly thought, like, hey, you're not one of us. So they took him. They ended up killing him. They murdered him. And this took a really big toll on Audrey, because that was another father figure gone. This time, he was not coming back.
Yeah.
So this would be very
horrible.
Traumatic to her. And then another traumatic moment in her life was when her and her mother would be passing through the train stations to get to, like, different towns to get stuff. And she would see in cattle trucks Jews being transported. And as a kid, you're probably like, what the heck are going on? But then the older that you get,
you learn and you think about, oh, that's what I saw that one day.
Yeah, because she's getting older at this point, because she was born in 1929, and it's already, like, 40. Mm-hmm. So she's getting older, she's becoming more of a young woman, and so she's understanding, like, what is going on, how brutal this is. There's just all these people being transported every single time.
Yeah.
So she's pretty much catching on, like, this isn't right. This isn't good. And her witnessing this and just understanding, like, her and just, like, what happens to her and her family throughout the war, this would be a huge contributor of her, pretty much her role as ambassador to UNICEF, which is, like, a huge, like, it's like a Red Cross organization.
Okay.
That helps, like, people around the world, especially children. Like, this moment in time would really affect that, because she was right smack in the middle of it, witnessing it all. And just how unnerving it would be. But it didn't stop here of just, like, how bad it was getting over there. In 1943, she had to stop her dance lessons at the place that she was going, because I'm going to try to pronounce this, but this I don't think it was a party. It was more so of just like she had to get a card to represent. Oh well, she was a part of the Reich, or that her and her family were for it. She had to get like a Kulturkammer card, but her mom and her were like no, so she had to stop dancing at the place that she would go to. So instead, she started teaching dance lessons to little kids. And then dancing on her own because she had nowhere else to do it. And this eventually, over time, like though she was teaching and whatnot, she was starting to go hungry. Everybody in Holland was starting to go hungry because no exports, no imports were coming in and out. There was nothing. They had no resources. It was just pretty much anything that they had there, which... when trading is like such a huge thing, especially in Europe, here, everywhere, that not having anything coming in,
right,
you have to make do with what you have. And I just wanted to point out that she and her family had to make flour from tulip bulbs.
Oh wow,
yeah. Like, they got to that point, and I was like, you can
that's
make
how hungry
flour from tulip bulbs?
Someone must have figured that out during this time.
I guess. I don't know if maybe that was, like, a common thing or whatnot.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah. Her mom worked at, like, the hospitals to really help tend to, like, the soldiers and whatnot.
Yeah.
She was working there, and so she was like, yeah, I'll help you out. But mostly she danced to raise money for the resistance. But, of course, she had to do it in hush-hush. And they would have this in, like, secret rooms. They had to do it, like, really kind of, like, on the low. Mm-hmm. Because if any German patroller found out, off.
Yep. Goodbye.
Off. But I also, oh, my God, this would make me so uncomfortable. But she still danced, like, in public and whatnot. And she still did recitals and plays. And she would do it for, like, the German officers and stuff. And when she would finish, no one clapped. It was just deadly silent.
Oh.
So they just...
So she's just, like, looking at him.
She just had to, like, stand there and just move on. And
smile and wave, boy. Smile and wave.
It's just so uncomfortable. I can't imagine.
That is so awkward.
Yeah. I was just like, oh, God. So, eventually, when the war would come to an end, and finally, like, she witnessed all of that for freaking 5 years.
Yeah.
She lost a lot of weight. So much weight. She was 5'7", 90 pounds.
Oh!
Yeah. She was really tiny. But, because originally, like, she was honestly kind of, like, made fun of for her weight. Because,
really?
Especially when her father left, like, she would tend to take to eating.
But then she couldn't.
No. Then she couldn't eat, and... She would kind of, like, gorge herself, like, along, like, when she would start to get food. But, like, that's because she didn't eat.
Yeah, exactly.
So she became so skinny.
Underweight.
Yeah, and she never really put on a lot of that weight, as we see. Like, watching her in Sabrina, which is, like, one of her older films, like, she is really skinny. But it's, like, it wasn't because of anorexia. It was literally because she could not eat during the war.
And it probably, like, showed her, like, the importance of food and, like, how, like, intentional she needed to be with eating it. Mm-hmm. So, like, she probably never ate too much again, you know, after going through that. You only need a certain amount of food. Yeah, this malnutrition would lead to her becoming anemic. So, anemia is, like, your blood. Yeah, it's something with blood.
If you lose too much, then you pass out. And then she had edema. Edema.
Sure.
So she had it pretty rough afterwards. Like, almost everyone they got hit pretty hard with not having any food. And they tried their best. You gotta give them that. But, like, still, with no resources coming in, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
And
it's rough.
Making flour from tulip bulbs. Oh my God. That's
hard.
Gotta
do what you gotta do.
It's a lot of tulip bulbs.
I know.
They're not very big.
Woo!
So, in 1945, she decided that she wanted to volunteer at the Royal Military Invalids Home to minister soldiers. So, she was just helping them out. And this was pretty much any soldier coming in that she would help out. And she actually stayed pretty good friends with a lot of them. Like,
That's
even
awesome.
in her later in life, she became pretty good friends. But she still wanted to become a ballet dancer. Like, she was dedicated to that still. She really fought to become a ballerina, like, or ballet dancer. She did everything. She even got a scholarship to go to London.
Oh, wow.
Which she took, thankfully. So she started to realize that becoming a ballet dancer was becoming further out of reach for her, especially solo one. But she wanted to focus a lot on choreography, though. If she couldn't become that ballet dancer that she wanted to be, she still wanted to be in that industry to work just as hard and to create something for the theater.
That's awesome, yeah.
Yeah. But along the way, she was introduced to be in this little kind of short documentary film. It's called Dutch in 7 Lessons. And this would unknowingly launch her film career. Like, kind of small. It was very small. Like, she didn't have any lines. It was all about her face. Because she is beautiful with big almond dark eyes.
Oh, yeah.
With raven black hair that she
was it always short? Like, did she always have the pixie cut look? Or,
well,
do you know?
If you see in a lot of film, well, when she was younger, she actually grew her hair out because ballerinas always have long hair.
Yeah, that's why I was like, there's no way she would have had, like, the short hair.
No, but that became, like, an iconic look for her because most of her movies, she has that shorter hair. Like,
yeah, I guess not all of them, but...
Yeah, like, in her earlier...
She had kind of, like, the shoulder...
Something like that. Cut. How she styled it was very...
It's like the flare. I'm trying to think of what the...
She kept it
Wasn't it
really padded together. Like, pinned.
Oh, yeah.
And even, like, if you... At Breakfast at Tiffany's, that was probably one of her longest hairstyles.
Now I can think of it. Okay, cool.
Her hair was, like, completely different in Breakfast at Tiffany's. Polly Golightly was just, like, a whole different...
It probably just got shorter as she was going.
I have maybe. It's a little bit of both. I'll go into Breakfast at Tiffany's a little later.
Yeah.
But, so this was freaking a start for her. She was ready. She was like, I'm here. I'm going to do this. I got this scholarship. Let's do this. But then friggin' Dutch in 7 Lessons came in, and she was like, okay. She didn't have any lines. It was pretty much just like a voiceover of her just doing whatever. And the documentary shows a clip of it, and it's just like, oh my gosh, she's so young. Like, I've only really seen young Audrey Hepburn. It's very rare that you see her older. But when you finally do, you're just like, she still looks good.
Yeah, she's always looked good.
Mm-hmm.
She did have a nice, like, facial structure. And, like, being a dancer, like, you have to use, like, expression on your face, so, like, I'm sure that helped, too, with, like, they were like, whoa!
Yeah, and she surprised everybody, and that's why people loved her, because she was so unique, she was different, she just had that appeal that would just draw your attention. Like, she could be in the freaking corner, and you would just draw her and be like, oh my god, and that's how she started to grow. So she did continue with dancing, like she did that little film thing, but she had to make money. She was broke. She wasn't getting much from ballet. Like, she wasn't getting anything from that because she got a scholarship. So she became a bartender. They call it moonlighting, which I guess that's still a bartender.
Yeah.
It was just a fancy term.
What you do at night. Drink.
Drink. So she was a bartender, but also part-time model.
Wow, that's fun.
But, like, she is so photogenic. Like, any pictures that you see.
They're iconic, too.
They are. Like, every single photo, you're just like, my god, your facial structure. And it was natural beauty.
Yeah.
Like, she just had a beautiful face.
Right.
I'm in love with Audrey Hepburn.
She's amazing.
She is amazing. But she was just so truthful and just so sweet. And I think that's what I appreciate.
Genuine.
Most. She was so genuine. I really appreciate about that. But yeah, she was just like a model for like drug advertisements. But then again, she was like, this is this is not what I want to do, but I'm doing it because people are offering me and they're giving me money for this. So she was like, sure, why not? But she eventually got into her first dance show, which is a musical. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's called High Button Shoes.
Oh, yeah, I have.
Yeah, she was in a, like, London adaptation for it.
Okay.
Back in 1948.
Fun.
Yeah, so she was not the main. She was just, like, a chorus kind of in the background doing whatever. And the show opened in the London's Hippodrome on December 22nd, 1948. She was in it.
Ooh.
Yeah, so this would become a huge stepping stone for her. She started to get recognized by a bunch of people. Like, they would come to see the show and be like, have you seen this Audrey chick? Like, she's pretty cool. She's pretty cool. She's just doing her thing, dancing, being
confident,
pretty,
genuine.
Because you have to be confident on there, but she's never done, like, a speaking role. So, like, her getting into into actual musicals or just, like, on-stage performances was highly intimidating for her because she's always been shy and introverted. Like, speaking in front of a bunch of people, she did not have any
it's out of her comfort zone.
Yeah, she didn't know how to present herself or how to do anything, but it came so naturally to her. And it also, like, it naturally in a sense that, like, she worked really hard to build her characters, and
she didn't use a lot of help to get there. Like, it was natural to her because she caught on quickly.
She did. She really did. So her roles just, like, kept moving forward. She kept going upwards. Like, she was moving up. She was getting a bunch of attraction, especially in her role in Gigi, which that became pretty big of people starting to realize, oh my god, like, she's talented.
Right.
But one thing that I still find funny, that in one of the books that I read by Barry Paris, he quoted, nobody was quite sure if she were a dancer, an actress, or a model, including Audrey herself. Like,
she's just talented.
She just went for it. She's like, oh, you want me to do this? Like, okay. Like,
she's good at it all.
Yeah, she's like, I'll do it, whatever. Like, let's have fun. But, so, when she was doing a play for, I think, Cabernet, she got the offer from this Italian director called Mario. His name was Mario Zampi.
Yeah.
And he offered her just, like, a pretty big role. Like, not the main role, but, like, a pretty important role in a movie called Laughter in Paradise. She turned it down because she was so devoted to working on this one, like, musical, like, theater play. And she was like, no, I can't. I don't want to disappoint. Well, eventually that fell through, and she was like, hey, if that role's still open, I'll take it. And he was like, hey, I'm sorry, but I already gave it to Beatrice Campbell.
Oh,
Beatrice. She's like, oh, well, if you need anything, I'm here. And he was like, I can give you a part of a woman selling cigarettes. And her line became iconic, because she said, you want a ciggy?
Yes, okay.
And that became pretty big, and, like, she started to grow from there, because when you look at her, you're just like, this girl's so petite, she's so small, but, like, she just draws you in.
Yeah.
There's just something about her that's crazy. So, this movie would then launch her career and Gigi. This would then start to get her more notice. She was a freelance actress at first, so she was tied to no one. She was just like, hey,
that's kind of nice.
Yeah, it was nice because she was getting into all of these films, but of course, like, all the contract people were like, you gotta get a contract so we can keep you, and she's like, no, I'm doing my own thing.
I'm good.
But eventually, she came into her first huge picture motion film of her as the main character. Can you guess what it is?
Not Breakfast at Tiffany's. That comes way later.
That's like 1961.
Wait, what year are we in?
This is 1950s, early 1950s.
What is it?
Roman Holiday!
Oh! Duh.
That's one of my favorites.
Roman Holiday's
she was,
so good.
oh my gosh, she was so young. But this was a huge role for her because it really took to new heights for a character.
Yeah.
Especially because she went from being this princess of just like high nobility, and she portrayed it so well, to just a girl who wanted to let go.
Right.
To be free, to explore all of everything, but then in the end, she's still tied to her status. She still has to be a princess.
Yeah.
And it took the film industry by storm. Her first year, she got an Academy Award for it.
Man, and that's such a good movie.
Yeah, it is so good. And when people saw her coming in, when people saw her in that movie, offers started coming in for her. She started getting those deals. She was like, oh, you wanna...
They're like, hey, you wanna be in my movie?
Right? And then she did eventually sign into a contract with Paramount. Which Paramount, like, is big.
Yeah.
Is the big... So, any movie that you see her in, most movies, you'll see her tied to Paramount. Yeah. Now, this was about in the early 50s through the 60s that she was always tied to Paramount. And people always said that she was just very lively. She was a great person on and off the set. Like, she was there to work, and she did well at it. Mm-hmm. But she was not only just a ballet dancer, a model. She was a fashion icon. She and her designer, stylist, Hubert de Givenchy, he would be her stylist until the end. He designed all of her iconic dresses. Mm-hmm. Breakfast at Tiffany's, that was him. Her style was so simple. It was very simple, but there was always something that just made it extra. Like if you look at Sabrina, like her elegant dress, like it's very, very simple when it comes down to it, but it's just like over the top.
Yeah. Because
it was a pencil skirt, but it had like this long train. When I think of Audrey Hepburn, I don't think of her Breakfast at Tiffany's dress. I think of her iconic black long sleeve, black pants, and her ballet flats.
I always imagine her in black, like, whenever I think of her.
Right? But she does it so well.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just, almost every movie, like most movies, where she's just being, like, a fun character, she's always wearing that outfit. Mm-hmm. Like, watching her in Funny Face, even in Sabrina, she was wearing that same outfit.
Maybe she just, like, doesn't want the attention to be on that.
Well,
she wants it to be on her character, you know?
She was just so simple. Her clothing was so simple.
I love that.
But it was just iconic.
Yeah.
Like, she's had so many iconic dresses when you think of it. Like, even My Fair Lady, like, her dresses were just like, whoa. Mm-hmm. Especially the one where she was going to the ball. But she said that, like, her style was very simple, but it was also very fun because it had, like, fun connections to it. But her relationship with Hubert they were, like, best friends. Like, they were super close, and I think that's really important with you and your stylist if you're a famous person.
They have to understand, like, who you are so they don't change it.
They correlated so well because they would just bounce off each other of just like, oh, we could do this or we could do this. They worked as a team, and that just worked for both of them. It was amazing. And it really held her personality through her clothes because she saw herself as such just like
simple,
just
even though she's good at everything.
Yeah, but she was humble. She's humble.
Yeah. Oh, that's a perfect word to describe her.
Not only were her clothes then becoming like a huge fashion staple for her movies were as well. So, in the movies that you watch of Audrey Hepburn, it's all about romance. Mm-hmm. She admitted that these movies that she tended to draw towards because she wanted that love. She didn't get it from her father a lot in her childhood, especially when he left. So she loves that her characters find love and they take it upon themselves. They don't really let the man come to save her or do whatever, or she tells them plenty of times, like, I love you. Like, even in Sabrina, like, though he does come to her at the end, she admits to him, like, hey, I'm over your brother. I'm over David. I like you. And, of course, he's, like, a businessman. He was like, meh. But she was always so just, like, adamant of her taking the effort to express her feelings. And I don't think she couldn't do that to her father. So doing that, like, to her husband, or, like, her love interest in the movie was the way for her to go.
Yeah.
And she was definitely ahead of her time of doing that. Because not a lot of actresses or writers would do that.
Yeah, for sure.
But a lot of the movies that she was in, though, were written from books, like Breakfast at Tiffany's. Because it was written by Truman Capote. But, so she was seeking love at this point. She was ready to pretty much find her partner,
her soulmate,
her love interest outside of the movies, and she found it in one of her co-stars. I believe it was in War and Peace. Her first husband, Mel Ferrer. They instantly fell in love with each other, and even her son, Sean. I love Sean. He is great. He's just so devoted to his mother, and he's just always carrying on her legacy, which I deeply appreciate. But, so, they fell in love, and within a year, they were married. They married in 1954. And they just had this dynamic duo of business, mostly, and I think that was, like, a big fault, is that though they were constantly together, and they started off just, like, in love, and she was happy that she wasn't feeling, like, abandoned by this man.
Yeah.
But it started to become mostly business related, and that would become a huge factor later on as being a problem. So she was still, like, lighting it, like, going for it. She was having the time of her life, making these great films. She was doing it all. But she's always brought, like, lightness into her films. Most of her movies are not depressing. They're very lighthearted. They're very fun. They're very quirky.
They make you feel good.
Yeah, like they're very... And Breakfast at Tiffany's was very iconic for many reasons. Not only her dress, but also like her fashion and everything, or just the story itself. But it was her character that made it just so unique, because none of her characters were ever like that, because she's very introverted, and a lot of her characters have been very kind of shy, and though she was very kind of dramatic in that sense, she was still like not charismatic to the sense of being such an extrovert like Holly Golightly as she was. So this character was like friggin' to a new level, and I believe in this movie they wanted to consider Marilyn Monroe.
I can see that.
Yeah, because she's so eccentric.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of fascinating because Marilyn Monroe would do, like, roles that were like her, or, like, Audrey Hepburn, like, did roles that weren't.
Yeah.
And, like, as an actor, like, I love doing the roles that are, like, completely opposite of me. Like, those are so fun.
Yeah, and it was really just, like, kind of almost... She wanted to take that role because it was something that was completely different to what she's already performed.
Yeah.
And Holly, she performed it so well. She performed her just amazingly. And one thing I got from about how devoted she was to just, like, her view of just, and pretty much her devotion to her character and to the movies, is that in the documentary, her son was talking about how Moon River wanted to be written out, which is one of the most iconic songs that she sings, because she can't really sing. She has a very short range of what she can sing, but she put her foot down on that. She was like, this is going to be in the movie. Like,
yeah, it's like character singing. Yeah.
Yeah. And she wanted that part of the movie to be in there because she wanted to show that Holly does have kind of just like that soft, kind of just more mild, kind of more of like Audrey's self. She really wanted to put that in there, and so she was just like, this has to go in the movie. Like, we're not going to cut this scene out.
Yeah.
And they didn't, and now it's like a super iconic scene in the movie.
Yeah.
Of her just chilling on her little windowsill with her little ukulele.
It's incredible.
Yeah. It's amazing. But, so eventually, she was stepping out of her boundaries, and she started to gain more confidence. Like, she's always had that insecurity about herself, and you see that more leading up to just seeing just videos of her, she was very quiet. She did not stand, for the time being, she didn't really stand out to doing anything dramatic. She was just kind of living her life. She had her son, Sean, with Mel Ferrer, and she just was doing her thing.
Living life.
Yeah, she didn't get into like any scandals and whatnot. And she actually, what I found interesting was that she went on a night show that's called Johnny Carson. He was always very intimidating to the people that would go on. Like, it either made or broke your career, pretty much. Mm-hmm. She intimidated him.
Oh, that says a lot.
Yeah, like, he was intimidated by her. Like, he was just like, oh, like, because she knew how to respond. She was so good at it, and he was just like, whoa.
Confident again.
Yeah, she was so confident in these interviews and whatnot, and that has become, and I think being on camera really helped that, because before, like, she wasn't, so she didn't really understand.
Yeah.
But, like, along the way, she was like, okay, I got to build this, and stepping out of her boundaries of roles really helped with that, too. So, along the way, like, this started to get, like, pretty... The one problem that she did have, though, with the press, like, early in her career, is that she got heat about My Fair Lady. Mm. So, everybody wanted Julie Andrews to take the role. I think I heard about that. Did so good with it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Julie Andrews is a queen. She would have done good too, but like, I think it was a good pick.
Yeah,
good cast decision.
Yeah, especially because, well, Julie Andrews. Oh God, anyone could do it, but Audrey did such a phenomenal job with it. But the problem was that she couldn't really sing. So for most of the movie, they had this woman, Marnie Nixon, voice for My Fair Lady.
Okay, I figured that.
For the singing.
Yeah.
But it's funny because there's some aspects that when she still has that kind of like groggy, like Cockney voice, I think it's Cockney. It's actually her. But then when she starts to swing all melodic and whatnot, it's Marnie. So I thought that was like really, really interesting. But that was that one point that she thought the press was going to turn on her for taking that role and not having Julie Andrews do it. But it's just like, you've been doing so good so far, and you did it so well. But so along this way too, Mel and Audrey started to drift apart. Like, that was their marriage became mostly more business than it was love. And because she didn't have that love growing up, she was so infatuated with the idea of having love. Of just being in a marriage that is full of
probably
love.
Like normalcy, like having a normal relationship and marriage. Like,
well, because she wanted to be in a marriage where it was actually a marriage. Yeah. And not so much just for the tabloids or just to be there for comfort. Like,
for love.
Yeah, like they loved each other and they stayed together for a while. But eventually, like, they drifted apart and they got a divorce. And that pretty much turned her up for a little while, but not for long, though. So, after 25 years, during this kind of stint of between, like, divorce, she started to really think about, like, her relationships, and one primarily being with her father.
Oh, yeah.
So, after 25 years, she found her father through the American Cross, and he was in Ireland, just living it up. He was part of just the fascist party, and he pretty much was let go after the war, but he still did not contact his daughter. And she went to him and was like, hey, he never told her, or just told her that he was sorry. She pretty much still was like, I forgive you for you leaving me. And I'm still going to support you. She supported him financially until he died.
That's great.
Yeah, she still was like, you're still my father. I still love you, but you pretty much...
Right, we can't have a relationship, but, I'll help you out.
It was really rough for her, and it's just, it's so sad, especially when you're going through everything. And she did not want to see that with her son. She was just like, I want to make sure that he has that happy family, that he goes to his father, that he knows that he's loved.
Right.
And that was a huge thing for her, was family. And that would become a very big part of just her leaving the film industry.
Yeah.
So the older that Sean got, the more she missed him. Because she was gone for films and she had to leave him. Eventually he was going to school, so she couldn't take him with her. And so she started to realize that I don't want to be away from my son. I don't want to be away from my family because I miss them too much. And because she was separated from her family, she thought back to what her parents did to her. And she didn't want that.
Yeah.
She wanted to be a close-knit family that she didn't really have until later in her life.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so she pretty much started turning down roles. She no longer wanted to be in roles because she wanted to take care of her family, and
that's a choice you have to make. Do I want this career? Do I want my
she
family?
chose her family over roles, and it's just
that's a lot.
So along this way, of her just making sure that her child has unconditional love, she met an Italian psychiatrist named Andrea Dolti. He was an interesting man. They had an interesting relationship. They were married in 1969, so literally a year after she was divorced.
Oh, wow.
Mel, she got married to Andrea.
Dang.
In 1970, that's when she had her second son, Luca. And they moved to Rome. So she moved from where she was, I believe it was London. Yeah, I believe it was London. They moved to Rome, and her life was pretty much uprooted from her privacy, because where she was originally, she had some pretty good privacy, but in Italy, she had no privacy. There was paparazzi everywhere and invading her privacy, and she hated it. She was pissed. She was like, they were just coming in, taking photos of my children.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Of my family during my privacy. And she was just
and taking away the kids' privacy.
Exactly.
They don't get a say in it, you know?
And then her relationship with Andrea was very... I feel like it started with a passion of love, but it kind of died out over time. Because they were married by 1969, and let's just say he was not faithful to her. What I saw in, I believe it's the documentary, that they photographed him with over 200 women in his car.
Woo!
Along the way, yeah. So, this broke her heart when she was finding all of this out. It just broke her heart because she wanted to find her one true love, and having him be unfaithful to her was like a punch to the gut. But they were honestly so different from each other. She wanted to live this normal life. She wanted to just walk the streets and just kind of do her daily life. She wanted to tend to her garden. She wanted to raise her kids without all of that fame. It's not like most.
It's never been about the fame for her.
No, because she didn't want to become an actress.
Yeah.
Which is the
I love that.
part. Yeah. So,
I respect her a lot for that.
And family became everything to her because she did not have. Well, she had it, but it was dysfunctional.
Right.
And she wanted a functional.
Makes sense.
But even then, with her having on her second husband, like, it's still, and him being unfaithful, and even in a sense, she was, by the end of, like, their marriage, she was just like, okay, we're both over this, like, we're over.
Yeah.
But, so, she lost, along this way, she stopped being, I think she was in maybe a couple films when all of this was, like, happening in the 70s and whatnot. But you could just tell she was not happy. Like, her photographs, you could just see her just becoming more sad.
She didn't really have a heart for it.
No. She just seemed, even, like, being, like, she was happy that she was being a mom, but having that sadness of just, like, I'm not having that perfect life that I wanted to have with my family. Like, that perfect family life. Like, but then again, no family life is perfect.
Right.
If it is, you're wrong.
She wanted the, like, usual life.
Exactly. But, like, of course you're not going to get that when you're famous. Half the time, really. But especially when you're a huge icon like that.
Right, right.
But, so, it didn't help, though, that the paparazzi were invading her privacy either. So that just made her more sad. And then she kept being persuaded, or just even persuading herself to stay in this marriage. This, like, loveless marriage at this point, because it was just, there was nothing left.
Yeah.
But then she met her final love of her life. Mr. Robert.
Robert?
Robert. But he's fancy.
Oh, you don't say the T.
No.
I get it.
Yeah.
Robert.
But I believe he's either Dutch or he's, like, part Dutch. So they kind of have that in common. But they met each other in 1980 at an auction. Now, she divorced, I believe, in 1983. So they kind of had this relationship, low-key, like, as she was, like, still married. But there was no hope for her other marriage. She was over it. But, like, no one, like, didn't actually just, like, push each other to actually go through it. Probably, I bet she did it mostly for Luca. Because she wanted to still have that, like, bond relation, like, family knit thing with him. But it was too late.
Right.
They were done. But her and Robert, she would stay with him until her death in 1993. Like, they were dedicated.
1980? 93?
Yeah, she died in 93.
Oh.
But, I'll get to that. Yeah.
I did not know it was that late. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Continue.
Yeah, right? But they never married. She did get a divorce with Andrea, but her and Robert never got married. They were pretty much just, like, devoted to each other. And she even says that, like, they were married without that legality.
Without the label. Yeah. Makes sense.
So, this completely turned her life around. Like, she started to be very happy. She was happy with where she was at. Like, she had her success from, like, her career. Her children were getting older. She was happy. She was already, like, in her 40s or 50s. She's getting older. But she wanted to do something more. Yeah. Because I believe her last film was in 89 that she did, but she really got into being a humanitarian. So she was asked, she actually spoke at a conference of some sort about her time in the war. Now, she would always share her story. And I read in one of the books how she really connected with Anne Frank.
Oh, interesting.
Because they were the same age.
Yeah.
But Anne Frank didn't make it out.
Right.
Because she was Jewish. And so she really took to her story and her play, her musical, like her diary. She really took to that. And just sharing, she wanted to share her story of just, like, how brutal it was to see herself and other kids just starve. And she was actually brought up, one of the heads of UNICEF came up to her and was like, hey, do you want to be an ambassador for us? And she was like, oh, yes, I do. Like, I want to help kids around, I want to help people around the world. Like, yes, I want to help starving children. Yeah. So she did. She did just that.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. She wanted to help children around the world who were hungry, and she remembers fondly, too, of after the war, UNICEF and the Red Cross came to give them food. And so she always held a pretty close tie with both of them. And so being a part of it now, she just felt it was this new commitment that she wanted to be a part of.
Yeah.
Was to be for UNICEF.
Makes sense.
And she promoted it constantly. She got millions of donations. Millions of dollars to donate.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because of just who she was. And it's just like, she used her freaking image to really promote. Like, that's phenomenal. Like, I give her props for that.
Sure.
So she always wanted to know what was, like, going on in UNICEF. Like, if there was some place that she needed to be, she's like, I'm there. But she put so much of her time into it, she completely subjected all of, like, her internal issues, or just her issues aside. So
this is in the 90s?
Yes.
So she's, like, in her 60s?
Yeah.
Nice. I love that.
Yeah. So she was getting up there, but she was rocking it. But she never told anyone for the longest time that she was having stomach pains. And this became a big problem to where, like, one of her friends that was working in Somalia with her was talking about, oh, I'm so sick. And finally Audrey came out and was like, hey, I'm not feeling well. Like, I'm not feeling well either. I'm thinking about seeing a doctor. And she was like, yes, go see her. Well, she found out that she had a tumor building in her small intestine. She had cancer. So, at this point,
so sad.
Yeah, it was, she went through chemo. And Robert, the whole time, stood by her. He was by her side the entire way. And I give him so much props.
That's
and
awesome.
Her son, even, like, in the documentary, her granddaughter was in it talking about, they spoke so fondly of her, and I was just like, it is so good that she has family now that just really remembers her, that gives that memory of her, just
nothing but positive things to say.
Exactly, and I love it. I'm here for it. I just love her son.
Yeah.
He's just from the book that he wrote to just how he really talks about his mother. It's just like, she raised him great. And you gotta give him that. But, so, she did not get better, though. She was slowly getting worse. But she had all of her friends around her at her bed, and she was pretty much saying her goodbyes. She had so many friends. Like, she even had, like, a garden. She was, like, really good friends with, like, the gardener. Like, they would garden together. Like, anybody who pretty much came up to her liked her. Like, she was a likable person. She was nice. She gave you respect, and she just wanted to be treated like everybody else. She
didn't care who she was. She didn't care what she's done, you know? Like,
she gave it her all. But eventually, that time had to end. Her goodbye. So, at 8 p.m., January 22nd, 1993, Audrey Hepburn died at the age of 63 because of cancer. So, 63. Yeah, but cancer is...
I really thought I knew she had cancer, but I thought she died at a younger age. That's so interesting.
Yeah, but after her death, her sons created the Audrey Hepburn Children Fund to help children, pretty much, because that's all she wanted to do in her later life, was to really help the kids in need. Yeah. Because she experienced it and how rough it was growing up.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I wanted to a quote from her that is probably one of her most iconics is, "Nothing is impossible. The word itself says I'm possible." And she made her career, her life possible.
That's beautiful.
She was an iconic woman. And she had so many awards, too. Like, she gave it all. So, she had 1 Academy Award, 3 BAFTA Awards, an Emmy Award, 2 Golden Globes, a Grammy Award, a Screen Actors Guild, and then a Tony Award.
Wow.
Like, that's pretty impressive. And then she had so many awards for her humanitarian.
Yeah.
So I give her so much props.
Right.
She was...
It's very rare that you see someone, like, so big that stays humble. I respect that a lot about her. That's awesome.
Yeah, like, she stopped her career at, like, such a huge peak because she wanted to take care of her family. And no matter what, like, I completely respect that, but because she had such a traumatic event with her dad leaving her and her mother kind of being here and there, she just wanted to be there for her children 100% of the time. And I love that. Just, like, reading more into her, I was just, it's phenomenal. Like, she is a part of history all around the world because she was in more than just American films. She was in French. She was in British. She was in a lot. Yeah. And even now, like, did you see that one commercial that she's in with the chocolate that they, like, reimagined her in?
No, I didn't.
It's crazy. I don't know how they did it, but they made her, like, sitting in a car. Like, she kind of looked like she was dressed in her Roman holiday outfit, but she was just chilling in no, it was either a bus or a car. She just, like, eats this piece of chocolate, and I'm like, how did they do that?
It's insane. Technology nowadays is terrifying.
But she's so iconic.
Yeah.
I wanted to be her for Halloween, but I couldn't find the dress in time.
That's fair. Maybe next year. Maybe this year.
I went as a Visco girl instead. One best, most creative.
I know. Like, I'm already thinking about Halloween. I love Halloween. Oh, God. All right.
But that was the iconic duo. Kinda.
Yes.
Two of the most iconic women in Hollywood history.
Very different people.
They really are. And it's so sad that Marilyn Monroe's had to be cut so short.
Right. I know. I wonder, like, what she would have done as she was growing up and as she, like, was starting to, like, change, you know? But...
Well, I wonder with her remarrying Joe, like... if anything would shift in, like, the relationship or just how she would.
Yeah, that's interesting, too.
There's so many what ifs.
I know. Yeah, there is. And like we said, we split this into 2 parts now, so
I'm so sorry.
You just listened to Audrey Hepburn. No, don't apologize. We love... There's a lot of history that goes with her, I feel like. It's not like... Oh my God. Like, her childhood is just so big, you can't skip those parts.
They did a whole freaking book just off World War II of her.
Yeah,
like, so... It's crazy.
Watch the documentary on Netflix, you said?
Do it.
Yeah, watch that.
Read just every single source on her. Read it.
So, we want to say the lesson we learned from this.
The lesson I learned is freaking Audrey Hepburn is a badass bitch, and I want to be like her when I grow up.
Yeah, that's fair.
As I'm already almost 24. I want to be like her when I grow up.
I had one earlier, and I can't think of what it was. So we had a story about, like, you know, trying to meet the beauty standards, and then we had one about, like, someone who just didn't care. So...
Well, she was still insecure.
I mean, of course, you know, she's a woman, but, like, it wasn't what she was known for. She was known for so much more, you know?
So... It was more of, like, her face beauty.
I guess what I've learned is be yourself. So cheesy.
I had like 1950s Hollywood.
I know, right? I had a really good one earlier, and it was really funny.
Oh no! God, I hate when
it has
happens.
Disappeared. Maybe I'll remember it and I'll write it down for next week. No, but like, I can't be serious so long. But like, don't let your
wow.
Be confident.
Be confident.
I guess that's really the overall theme. Be confident in who you are.
Yeah, look where
nothing can stop you.
To.
Yeah, nothing can stop. They were both extremely confident. They both knew what they were capable of, and that's how we should all be.
Just gotta push through. Audrey surely did. She was super shy. Like, even towards, like, all of her co-stars and stuff, she was kind of just, like, to herself.
Yeah.
But as soon as she stepped on stage, she was like, I'm here. And I'm like, I want to be you.
Well, thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
We will We will talk to you next week.
We will.
And you will find out what we are talking about next week.
Welcome to Historia.
You mean goodbye from Historia?
No.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Okay. Welcome and goodbye.